And we are live. Welcome everybody for this live stream. And today I will reveal a brand new opportunity for blockchain developers. There was a lot of discussion on crypto Twitter the past week. And I think this is something very interesting that you probably don't know. And that's right now there is just so much demand for that. So I wanted to share this with you. And for the top role for this new kind of job, you can pay really high, up to $400,000. So that's pretty insane. Um, so if you are new here, I'm Julian, and on this channel, I help you to become a blockchain developer. I work with this technology pretty much every day since 2017. So I have a little bit of experience in this. All right, so first, let's see who we have today. So where you guys are from, let me know in the chat. So we have a Justice here. We have a THX, a couple of other people. All right, so before we get started, very briefly, if you are new here, and you want to know how you can start your career as a blockchain developer, check out my free training. This is a couple of videos that will tell you exactly what you need to learn and what kind of opportunities there are out there for blockchain developers, because the space is pretty big and can be pretty intimidating as a beginner. You don't know where to begin, so this will guide you. And this will also explain how you can get a six-figure job even as a total beginner. I'm going to explain you the process. So I put the link of the free training in the chat. Go check it out. All right, so we have more people in the chat. We have Alex, we have Adprati from India, we have Ulas. Amazing. Okay, so what kind of job do you think I'm talking about that can pay up to $400,000? Do you have any idea? And the answer is, let me show you this in the chat. The answer is DevRel. Okay, so here this is a famous DevRel in the space that share this on Twitter. Basically mention a position of head of DevRel. I can pay up to $400,000. So DevRel means developer relation. Okay, so what does this mean exactly? So that's developer relation, or just DevRel. This is a job where you basically help companies to sell the product to developers. So we are talking of tech company here. Of course, it's not going to help some restaurant or some random company. This is very specific, and this is not even all tech companies. For example, I don't know, if you work for Uber, there's no point to be a DevRel for Uber. They don't sell anything to devs. So here we are talking of tech companies that sell a service to developers. So everything about dev tools, APIs, infrastructure. So companies that sell some server, for example, some virtual machine, etc. So this is the kind of company that needs DevRel. So DevRel, developer advocate, but sometimes we call this developer relation, but sometimes we also call this developer advocate or developer evangelist. It has different name, but DevRel is the most common one. So this is a role where you have a mix of marketing and also of technical tasks. So this is like a hybrid role. It's a little bit difficult to define, but not many people have these two skills. So this is why DevRel I paid pretty well. But I think there is a specific kind of developer to whom it suits really well, like the kind of developer that is really independent, that maybe they want to have their own thing, that also they're good at technical stuff, but they also like to talk. So there is a specific profile for that. All right, so basically the DevRel is going to bridge the gap between between the company and the developers outside of the company. So the problem is that the developers are a very special kind of customers. You know, you don't sell to developers like you sell to other kind of consumers. Okay, so you need someone to help you for this. Like if you just apply the same recipe that you find for online marketing for developers, usually it doesn't work. Like developers, they have a very specific way. They are very suspicious. So you need to be a little bit more careful about how you communicate. So this is why we need people who really understand developers. And so I'm going to give you a few examples of DevRel teams that exist in Web3. So a couple of big blockchain company you may know, those are blockchain APIs. So we have Infura, we have QuickNode, we have Alchemy. So a couple of really big blockchain company, what they do is they have APIs for blockchain dev. So they basically help you to access the blockchain, but in a simple way with a REST API. And they have whole teams of DevRels that help to promote their API to developers, because basically the developers are the customers. So this is really an example in Web3. We have a lot of examples also in Web2, but only the blocks we talk about blockchain. So what are the challenges when you want to be a DevRel? Well, a couple of them. So you need to balance the several aspects. You need to balance the community building aspect. So when you talk to people and all the people that are outside the company, and you need to balance this with the promotion of your product. So if you are too promotional, your community won't like it, but at the same time, you also need to promote the product sometimes. So this is a very, very special balance. And for Web3 specifically, there is an extra challenge because in Web3, we have some values like decentralization, but a lot of the company that have DevRels, they are very centralized. So they raise money with VCs, exactly like Web2 companies, and they offer a service based on centralized servers, also like Web2 companies. So you're really walking on eggs here. It's not easy. So originally, there was no DevRel, like 10, 15 years ago, there were much less DevRel. It was just developers, and what developers were doing is that they wrote documentation, okay, and there was more and more capital that was injected in dev tools, and the competition just got more intense. So at the beginning, we didn't need DevRel, but as the competition got more intense, there was more effort to do in marketing, and so there was some developer that was stretched between actually building the product and promoting the company. And so at some point it wasn't possible anymore. So we decided to extract some developers from the product team and to make them 100% in this new DevRel position. So DevRel can mean very different things for different companies. So there isn't really one official definition, but generally speaking, it's like a developer who is going to do the marketing of the company. You can define it like this. So if you're a DevRel, how you can measure success? Because if you are to work as a DevRel, you need to know your success metrics, because otherwise in interviews, like they will grill you, and you will be ejected right away. So basically, the company is here to make money from paid user, right? So there is this concept of sales funnel. So developers, before they buy your product, they will go through different stages. So one of the first stages is email sign-up. So if you have a sort of newsletter, they enter your funnel. Another metrics is if you have a sort of free community on Discord, for example, where how many users we have in this Discord. If you do some event, well, how many people sign up to the event, how many people actually attended the event. And then we have the growth of free users. So usually for all those developer tools, usually it's like SaaS, where you have a free tier and a paid tier. So what's the growth of free user? And finally, what is the growth of paid users? Of course, the most important. So those will be your metrics. All the effort that you do is basically to improve those numbers. So now I wanted to show you a little bit what does a DevRel campaign looks like. So because here on Eat the Blocks on my YouTube channel, so me myself, I'm not a DevRel, but I basically do a lot of the task of a DevRel because I do content creation. And as a result, there are many blockchain companies that reach out to me so that I create tutorials for them. So you can see me as a sort of a DevRel on demand somehow. So I'm going to show you a little bit some example of DevRel that I did. All right, so here's my YouTube channel. And here, let me see. I wanted to show you. Let me see. Oh yeah, here. This video that you see here, it was for a hackathon for a blockchain called Nervous. And so basically, I was paid to do these videos, basically to promote their hackathon. So typically a task of DevRel. And there are many other videos I did like this, like I did a tutorial, a full course for Polygon, so different things. Now, also a couple of other things that you can do as a DevRel. So for example, you can do a hackathon where your developer come in and build something using your API, of course. You can do sponsor conferences. You can do workshop or Twitter Spaces. Those are really popular nowadays. And you can also create some tooling. So for example, you guys might be familiar with the Foundry, a popular framework for smart contract. And so Foundry, initially, it was financed by a VC, so an investment company. So not the typical company that does DevRel, but it kind of makes sense because they want to invest in tech project. And so one way to create a relationship with developers is to create the tooling. So they created an open source project. And sometimes you have some companies that have this strategy. Basically, they create an open source tool that works well, that becomes popular, and then if you want some extra feature or use this tool in an easier way, then you can use this API. So it also works well, but this is not easy to execute. So now, in terms of what are the tools that you use as a DevRel, well, basically, so all your coding, usual coding tool, of course, to create all those tutorials, but also social media. You will use social media a lot. So in terms of the future trends for DevRel, here is how I see it evolving, especially for Web3 companies. So first of all, more and more companies will use DevRel. And okay, I'm going to share with you a tweet from the same DevRel I mentioned before. So basically the demand for blockchain DevRel is exploding at the moment because more and more companies understand that they need to promote themselves and they cannot just follow the mantra of YC, which is build and they will come. Well, the problem is like nowadays there's just so much VC money that you're not the only one to build something cool. So you need to make some effort on the marketing side. And so more and more companies will use DevRel, including smaller companies. So in general, companies that can afford a DevRel are pretty big, but the average size of the company with DevRel will probably go down. And we might even see a DevRel as a service, meaning like some companies that just do DevRel for other companies, but on a contract basis. So we will see this more and more as DevRel is becoming more democratized. And so in terms of salary, so I mentioned initially 400K, so that's for a senior position, and that's including equity in general when you see high numbers like this. But if you start as a junior, it will start somewhere between 100 to 150K. So yeah, DevRel pays pretty well. All right, and so in terms of location, really, there is no big requirement here. This is mostly a remote job, because there is no point to go to an office really when you're a DevRel, because A lot of the time you will be traveling somewhere, either to a conference or to organize a workshop. So it doesn't matter where you are, because in any case you are going to travel a lot. All right, so in terms of prerequisite, what do you need to know in order to be a Web3 DevRel? So of course you need to understand the blockchain basics. So I suggest to focus on Ethereum, because that's where you have the most demand for blockchain DevRel. So you need to understand Ethereum, proof of work, proof of stake, what's the data structure of the Ethereum blockchain, transactions, wallets, so the basic stuff. And then you need to understand smart contract, of course, what we can do with smart contracts, because you are going to do a lot of tutorials. So you need to understand what kind of tutorials we can do. And you need to understand what are decentralized applications, so dApps. You need to know a few existing dApps, for example, Uniswap. In terms of programming languages as a DevRel, so you need to know Solidity, of course, that's the language of smart contract, JavaScript to build frontend, and optionally, you can know some other languages like Python, Rust, for example, if you are in the Solana ecosystem. But those are really the most important ones. So in terms of dev tools, at least on the EVM, so you have Remix, the IDE for Solidity. Solidity itself, the language for smart contract, Foundry, a popular framework, Ethers, a library for the front end. And I would even recommend to research two alternatives for each use case. For example, Ethers, that's the most popular right now for the front end. But an alternative is Web3. So as DevRel, you need to have some opinions on these tools. Okay, you need to have your personal preferences. So you need to know the different options that you can say, okay, I prefer this one because of X, Y, Z, but you need to have some opinions. Foundry, you have an alternative called Hat. Okay, so check out both of them and what is the best. And you need to follow what is the most popular one, of course. Then in terms of the Web3 ecosystem, so there are a couple of tools that you need to know. So of course, on the wallet side, you need to know the most popular one, MetaMask, of course. Then ENS, Ethereum Name Service, that's a service so that you can use a human readable name for Ethereum addresses. You need to know that. IPFS, this is a tool to store data in a decentralized way. This is not a blockchain. But still considered in the Web3 ecosystem, and you have the graph to read data from the blockchain in an easy way. You also have blockchain bridges, so that allow you to transfer assets between blockchains. And so it's really important to know all those building blocks, because when you are going to create tutorials, you need to integrate those, you need to use all those building blocks, and so that you can make some more interesting tutorials, and so you understand how developers use the Web3 ecosystem. Then you need to know the main blockchain APIs and how they differ, because probably that your company is going to be compared to the others. So you understand, you need to know what are the strengths and weaknesses. Infura, QuickNode, Alchemy, okay, how do they sell themselves? Because they are each positioned in different ways, so you need to understand that. Then you need to know a few analytical tools. So there is Dune, for example, DUNE, to basically do some analysis on the blockchain. So as a DevRel, super important to understand the usage pattern of your users. You also have DeFi Llama, which give you a set of metrics on the blockchain and on DeFi especially. So DeFi Llama is more on the user side, but the user side is very important because developers, they build tools for users. So for example, on DeFi Llama, if you see that a certain blockchain is getting more usage, then there are more developers that will want to build on this blockchain, which means maybe it's worthy to do an API there. Then you need to understand DAOs. So DAOs that are basically sort of organization that are decentralized organization on the blockchain, so that allow to govern for the governance for some protocols. And in Web3, this is really about community, and DAOs are all about community. So this is why I would strongly recommend to spend some time on at least one DAO. Check out the forums, check out the discussion, check out how they vote, how they take the decision, because that actually could be a model for your own community. Then you need to know about security. So you need to understand first the importance of security. Every year we have billions of dollars that are stolen from smart contracts. So as a DevRel, you need to know that. You need to understand the security from the technical side. So know at least a few big hacks and understand how we can secure smart contracts, for example, with smart contract audits. Then you also need to understand security from the user side. So how you can keep your wallet safe with hardware wallets, how you have to verify each transaction before signing it. So before you can be a developer, you also need to be a good user, of course. Then there's the issue of privacy. So you need to understand what are the privacy issues with existing Web2 product, and how in Web3 we fix this, because that's going to be one of the themes that you're going to talk about in your content. Okay, so you're going to have, of course, Web3 development, but security, privacy will be a big one. For example, the tools of Web3, how do they fix privacy? MetaMask, how does MetaMask fix privacy? The answer is by not showing your address to a dApp unless you allowed the dApp to do it. And then you should know a few privacy tools like Tornado Cash. Then as a blockchain DevRel, you need to understand the use case, the real world use case of the blockchain, not the use case in the future, but the use case right now. So, of course, number one, the blockchain is an investment platform. Okay, it's the number one use case at the moment. People like to be degen and invest in whatever meme coin. So very important part. Then you have the stablecoin aspect. Stablecoin are huge for online payments. For example, I pay some of my employees with stable coins, very good use case. Then banking the unbanked is also a huge use case. Then another thing you need to know is crypto trading. So I know it might sound weird because we're not doing directly trading, but let's not fool ourselves. Right now, as I said, the main use case of the blockchain is investing and gambling. And so that means a big part of the user are traders. So then you have developers who build tools for these traders, or at least interact with this ecosystem one way or another. So you need to understand a little bit to have a high-level overview, a high-level knowledge of different exchanges. What is the exchange landscape? What are the fiat on-ramp, off-ramp? So me personally, crypto trading is not my favorite thing, but I'm in blockchain, so I'm forced to know about it. And then the last thing you need to know is the ethos of the community. So because you're gonna have to communicate with the blockchain developers, so you need to understand how they think. And there are a few values that are cherished by blockchain dev, like decentralization, ownership, community, and privacy. So you need to be clear on that. All right, so now let's talk of the skills required to be a DevRel. So first of all, general remark, DevRel is a role for generalist instead of specialist. So you need to know a little bit about many things. So you will be a jack of all trades with a strong foundation technically, but we won't ask you to be as strong as, let's say, a blockchain core developer, or like someone who does crazy stuff like zero knowledge or something like this. But you need to have a wide knowledge. And I would say there is no hard limit for the technical, how many years of experience do you need to have technically. But what I've seen on a lot of job description is at least 2 years of experience as a developer. Not necessarily as a blockchain dev, but at least as a developer. All right. Then. So those are the general remarks. Now, what about let's go a little bit deeper on the technical proficiency. So I mentioned a little bit before, so knowledge in blockchain technology, of course, smart contract, dApp, programming language, I already mentioned that, Solidity, JavaScript. There is definitely more demand on the EVM side. You need to know the dev tools, all of the main development tools for blockchain development. The infrastructure, I already mentioned blockchain APIs, faucets, how you get free Ether for testnet. And here, try for your technical knowledge, try to be really specific. So let's say that you target optimism. Well, on top of everything I mentioned, check out how optimism works. Check out how their protocol works, because they have things that are specific to them, like a sequencer, for example, or like some tools that are specific to them. That the blockchain explorer are different. The governance is different. So it will really pay off to be really, really specific here. All right, so this is the technical skills. But now, as I mentioned, DevRel, this is a role that mixes technical skill and non-technical skills. So in the non-technical skills, I think this is where you can make all the difference. So of course, you need this strong foundation of technical stuff, but where you can really make the difference is with your communication, the other skills. So first of all, communication skill. Are you able to clearly explain complex technical details? Very important. It's very difficult to explain something complex in a simple way. You know, oftentimes we see someone that explains something simply and we think that's easy, but usually it's not. As under the hood, you have to think a lot about it to basically essentialize the knowledge, meaning that you are going to reduce it to its more fundamental elements, but without mentioning everything. You don't want to mention every detail. You need to carefully select what you will explain to make it easy. Then you need to try to say as much as possible with as few words as possible. So you need to maintain a high signal to noise ratio. Then another skill that is very important is content creation. So you need to be able to create engaging and educational content. That's going to be a big part of the job, and I will talk more about this after. Another skill that you need is to be social media savvy. So you need to know how to use a different social media platform. Because nowadays, most of organic traffic comes from social media. So in the past, you could just put a blog and at some point the SEO will kick in and you get some traffic. Nowadays, that's over. You want some traffic, you need to be on social media. So you need to be knowledgeable in that. Another aspect of DevRel is community building. So community building, basically you need some skill to grow and nurture a tech community, and that's not easy. I've done a bit of it, so I have some experience there, but definitely a useful skill. Another skill is event management, so a little bit less difficult. So you need to be able to plan and host some Web3 events. Then analytical skills, so you need to be able to analyze metrics and KPIs to measure engagement, and that's important because big organizations want to track their budget. So what happens when you're a DevRel, typically you'll have your salary, then on top of your salary, maybe you're gonna have business expenses. So they will pay for your flight ticket, for your conference tickets, etc. And on top of it, you're gonna have maybe some budget to do your activities. So maybe some budget to book a room somewhere, to do a meetups. You know, so you have, let's say you have a conference and then you organize a side event. You're gonna have a budget for that. But when they give you money, the downside is that you also need to report. Okay, they want to see the results. So you need to put in place a system to track the effectiveness of what you're doing. In terms of marketing skills, so there are a few marketing skills that are useful. So what's the sales funnel? You know, if you do some e-commerce, you probably heard about this. What's email marketing? So before you actually sell to a developer, there is like a whole sequence. And the last skill I would say is emotional intelligence. So when you're a dev, the main skill we have is logic, really. We always read tutorials, we do technical things, and we need some emotional intelligence because we have some colleagues, we work in a team, but this is not the number one aspect. But when you're a DevRel, emotional intelligence is very important because first of all, you are going to communicate, so you need to be careful about what you say. And then you're going to have a lot of stakeholders. So people you talk with, people you meet at the conference, people in the company, partner outside of the company, other companies, content creators, etc. And so to deal with all those people, you will need emotional intelligence. So that means, for example, if you have if you have a shitty character, well, maybe you're gonna need to fix this, because if you are not nice with people, it's not going to work. Then another, all right, so those are the different skills that you need to have. So now I want to zoom in on one type of skill that is very, very central from my perspective is content creation. So first some general advice, like how to get some idea. How do you create some good content on social media? So one idea is to build something. Build something, and then once you've built something, you're gonna run into issue, and you can talk of how you solve those issues. Then another way is to listen to people questions, observe where developers are struggling. So check out on social media what people say, check out on GitHub with your conversation with other people, what is hard, like in their experience of building application, where do they struggle, and this is where you can create content about, and where the product of the company should be, of course, because those goes hand in hand. Then to create good content, you need to target a specific user. So for example, Web2 developer who want to build on Web3, then target a specific outcome. So, hey, I will teach you how to integrate with MetaMask. I will teach you how to listen to events, but something really specific. And then in every piece of content, you should have what's called a CTA, a call to action. So that's basically a way to get people from your website or from the social media to a place that you control, like your newsletter, and from there you'll be able to nurture the relationship to eventually sell them something. But I see a lot of blockchain companies, they know nothing about online marketing, and they really suck. They really suck at it. They just say, they send you directly to their their landing page, and they're like, all right, I've done a tutorial for you, now buy now. And in most of the cases, it doesn't work. So if you have that kind of knowledge, this is really something that you can bring to the company. Like most blockchain companies, they suck at marketing. So very, very interesting skill you can bring. Then another way you can create content is by creating a blog post. So usually it's between, so blog post is between 1,000 to a few thousand words. So at the beginning, just explain clearly what's the goal of the tutorial. Then you do a step-by-step tutorial where you explain everything you do, include code snippet, syntax highlighter. There are a couple of plugins that allow you to do that. And I like to use what I call the sandwich technique. So first in the intro, I explain what we will learn. Then there's the content. And in the conclusion, I recap what we learn. So this is like a sandwich. And this is very effective. Then if you create content on Twitter, so first of all, on Twitter, this is where the smartest people are. So really a very high value audience, a lot of founders, for example, on Twitter. But the downside of this is like, this is a hard audience. Like out of all the social media I've done, Twitter is by far the hardest to grow. But yeah, a lot of smart people, a lot of developers on Twitter. So the way you're gonna grow on Twitter is basically you need to tweet often, like several times a day, and you need to do a tweet thread. So basically long tweet where, for example, you can explain a new technology from a high level perspective. So don't try to do like a coding tutorial on Twitter, it doesn't work, but just explaining from a high level perspective is good. Okay, another social media, LinkedIn. So can you use LinkedIn as a DevRel? Yeah, absolutely. I would say similar content as Twitter. So you can explain something from a technology from a high level perspective. It's a little bit less tech savvy compared, and a little bit, the proportion of developer is smaller compared to Twitter. So you can experiment, but I wouldn't say it wouldn't be my primary platform. But on the good side, it's easier. Like for me, when I post the same thing on Twitter and on LinkedIn, I always have way more views on LinkedIn. Then another social media you can use that I know very well is YouTube. So YouTube, what's really interesting is that you can do long form content, which is great for a tutorial. So for example, let's say you've done a tutorial as a blog post, then you can turn it into a video tutorial. It can be 10, 15 minutes, but it will be more work because you will have to use some different software, like a video editing software. There will be a lot of things that you need to learn. So video editing, this is something that takes a lot of time. This is really horrible. You can delegate it, but it's not easy. The audience is definitely more beginner on YouTube compared to Twitter, but you do have a lot of developer as well. Oh yeah, another thing that is very important if you're a DevRel, you work for a blockchain company, for a tech company, I wouldn't try to be too corporate. I see a lot of blockchain company on YouTube. They have this very corporate look and their thumbnail is really boring, and in general, most of their channels suck. Like I've helped a few blockchain company. I've done some tutorials for them. And on my channel, their tutorial do well. But when I see the tutorials on their channel, it's terrible. It's just like a few hundred views, and usually they suck at it. So it can actually be more useful if you want to be a blockchain DevRel on YouTube. It can be more useful to have the company probably will not like it, but if I was a founder, this is what I would do. I would let my DevRel create a channel under his own name, because I think for people, it's just way easier to associate with a specific personality instead of like a faceless brand like Alchemy or whatever. Like people don't want that. They want the association with a specific person. So your blockchain DevRel could have his own channel under his own name, but is under the contract with a company to help them specifically. Then another possibility is to create podcasts. So podcasts work great in terms of you have the highest quality of audience. So there was some study that was made, and in general, the income of people who listen to podcasts is way higher than any other platform. People spend a lot of time with you on podcasts because usually, when people start to listen to a podcast, they don't stop it. They are walking in the street, they're going at the gym, doing something. So you can develop this relationship for an extended period of time. Like they will listen to you for 1 hour. So you build very strong relationship. The big downside of podcast is that in terms of numbers, it's gonna be way less than other platforms. So in terms of YouTube, way less than YouTube, way less than Twitter, but it's gonna be less of a much higher quality audience. So you have a trade-off here. And an advantage of podcast is that it's way less work compared to YouTube. You just need a microphone. Of course, you need to prepare some talking points, but it's just much faster to prepare. In terms of editing, it's also much faster. So yeah, interesting platform. Then the last point I want to mention about content creation is technical documentation. So typically, if you have a dev tool or an API, you want to create some documentation. So you have different ways of doing it. You can do something custom with a framework like Next.js, but you also have some open source solution for technical documentation, and you also have some SaaS solutions. So if you really want to go really fast, you pay a service and they'll let you do your documentation really easily. All right, drinking pause. So what's next? So I just mentioned content creation, which is a huge part. Another part is building community. So how do you do that? So me on Eat the Blocks, my main job is to create content, but I also have a community. Let me show you this. So here, this is the community of private community of Eat the Blocks. So I have a Discord channel with different different channel and basically. So I have some experience in this. So there are different kind of community, but first of all, you need to understand who is your target audience. Are we talking of junior developer? And when we say junior, is it junior Web 2, junior Web 3? Then you need to choose a platform to build your community. So for most of the Web 3 communities, it happened on Discord. So what is interesting on Discord is that you can create several threads. You can organize your community in a nice way. Then you have a whole ecosystem of plugins and of bots where they can help you to enhance your community. Telegram is also a good choice. It's more simple than Discord, but it's a bit more messy because you basically have one giant thread, and usually it's just harder to follow the conversation, and people mostly use Telegram on mobile. So in general, the conversation aren't as sophisticated on Telegram. And then another place is Twitter Spaces. So Twitter Spaces, basically this is like a sort of on-demand podcast on Twitter. So it's interesting also to grow, to get new member, but then you want to send those members to either Discord or Telegram because otherwise nothing happen. Then so I've talked of online communities, but it's also interesting to do things in real life by organizing community events. So you can do meetups, you can do hackathon, you can do workshop. All of this, by the way, can also be done online. But what's really interesting with in real life meetups is that usually they are high impact. Like you create deeper relationship with people. So it will be less people, but a deeper relationship. The downside is that it will cost more money and it takes more energy to organize. Then another aspect of building a community is to keep the community informed. So you need to keep them updated about the project update, a new development, and remain open, remain transparent about the challenges and the success. So nowadays people really don't like it when you're transparent. So let's say there's a data breach in your app, then you have to be transparent about it. Or if let's say you introduce a new pet plan and some people are not happy about it, so well, instead of like putting your hand in the sand, you need to engage with the community and understand what's the problem. And this is not always easy. Then what else? Another aspect of community building is to give some incentive. So it could be interesting to design a reward system to encourage community participation, for example, by giving some NFTs if some people participate in some task, because everybody wants to have more social status. So if people can show some badge, some special things they have because they get some reward, it's a nice thing to have in a community. Sometimes money reward can be good, so for hackathon, for example, but of course you need to have a budget for that. And sometimes the incentive can just be some credit to use your API, so in which case it doesn't cost you as much money. Then another aspect of your community is, of course, to grow your community. So the way you grow your community, there are different ways, but being active on social media is the first way. Creating content regularly where you send people to this community. You can also collaborate with other communities, so you can create a workshop with other communities. You can collaborate with content creators, people like me who are on YouTube or other social media, and get in touch with them and yeah, ask them to create some content for you. And the last aspect of growing a community is to measure the KPI, the key performance of indicator. So it'd be interesting to have some sort of feedback mechanism where you can measure if the member of your community are happy with what you're doing, and this is not always easy to do, but sometimes you can do this with survey, things like this. But yeah, feedback super important. And then you as a DevRel, your job will be to forward this to the product team so that they know how to improve the product. Okay, so we've talked of the most important aspect of DevRel, and now I want to talk of the most important thing: how to find a job as a DevRel. So first of all, the companies that hire DevRel. So generally, those are bigger companies, or at least startups that are funded by VCs. So it will never be, very rarely it will be someone like an indie hacker, like a solo developer. It's always gonna be a team. So we're talking of, for blockchain specifically, we're talking of blockchain APIs and dev tools. And you also have the blockchain themselves. For example, Polygon hires some DevRel. All the main blockchain have a whole team of DevRel. This is not a role for total beginners. Okay, so I mentioned it's good to have at least 2 years of experience as a developer, not necessarily in blockchain, but as a developer. And that's because your tech skills are really the foundation of everything else. So if you have no tech skill, you will have nothing interesting to say, and it's just difficult to have some credibility to be like a community leader if you know nothing about what they do in this community. So really start by working on your tech skills. You don't need to be crazy experienced, like 10 years of experience, but 2 years I think is a good number. What I would recommend is to do some reverse engineering. So how would you do that? So you can subscribe to different newsletters from those companies that hire DevRels, so that you can see what kind of content they do. Consume technical content on blog, video, Twitter, join developer communities, and just study how they do it. Like take notes, what kind of content they do, what kind of activity they do, basically everything you can learn. And then I would recommend to build something with the tech stack that you are targeting. So for example, if you want to target infra big blockchain API, so what you can do is you check out the API and you build something on it, and if possible, something that really use really well the API. So maybe not just the generic API, but maybe they have some specific API that make it easy to build something. And so if you can build something that really illustrate how the API is awesome, that's the best. And once you've done that, so you can create content on what you just built and talk about their tech, of course. And actually, I recommend this approach no matter if you want to be to all blockchain dev, no matter if you want to be a DevRel or not, because that's going to help you regardless. But if you want to become a DevRel, this is especially relevant. And you can another thing you can do is build communities. So for example, you can build a community of developer on Discord, doesn't take a lot of work, and then you share it on Twitter, and then you try to find ways to make this community interesting, but that will demonstrate that you have some community building skills. And you will learn a few things. You will learn, for example, that in the community you have many different people, and that it's not always easy to please everybody. But those are the nice experience that you can have before you apply. And another thing you can do is you can reach out to existing DevRels on Twitter. So you can do a quick Google search like DevRel plus the name of a company plus Twitter, and then you'll find some of them. Same on LinkedIn. And you can send them DM, and try to start a conversation and say, hey, are you trying to hire some other DevRel in your team? Because in general, they don't work alone. In general, this is the whole team. So you have the junior DevRel, and then you have the boss, etc. And another way that you can do DevRel, but independently, so without being hired. So you can target smaller companies, and you can help them to create content on a contract basis. So this is what I do. And me, actually, with my YouTube channel, I don't have anything to do. I just receive messages. Either they contact me directly, or they hire some marketing company, and then just ask me, hey, do you want to create this kind of tutorial for me? And if I have some interest, I answer and I give them my code, and that's really easy. But I don't have to do anything. Of course, when you're getting started, that's not the case. You will have to do some cold outreach. That is not necessarily the funnest part of the process. But if you value independence, you can do it that way. In this case, it's actually a great way to get started, because you can accumulate some experience on a contract basis before starting full time. And so that's basically how you would become a DevRel. I want to show you a couple of books. So let me see. A couple of books about marketing. Okay, so I'm gonna assume if you want to become a DevRel, you're already knowledgeable about technical topic, but here some topics you might not know about. So this book's pretty good. The YouTube formula. So that's a book to learn how to do YouTube, for example. A book about YouTube. Then another book, How to Build Communities by Pat Flynn, is a famous marketer. Very interesting. And then another book about online marketing, because as a blockchain DevRel, there is a part of marketing. So there is this guy, so Expert Secret for Russell Brunson is one of the top guy for online marketing. Yeah, and so really by combining your technical skill with this marketing skill is where you can become so special. And right now the demand is insane. So I think this is a great opportunity, and very few people will do this. So I'm gonna check out the chat, but first let me remind you, if you're new here and you want to learn how you can get started in blockchain, check out my free roadmap, eattheblocks.com/roadmap. Just go register. This is gonna be super useful, and it's entirely free. Okay, so let me see. Madeline, just a personal note. Feels like the DevRel position would be open for crypto influencer with some community base as well. Yeah. So as I said at the beginning, what you can do is you can just create some content. For example, create some blog posts, some tutorials. You don't need a community for that. And I would recommend to create your community as soon as possible, so that you have something to sell. But this is not the DevRel, this is a position that is that can mean very different things for different companies. So maybe some companies are more interested in your community, but some companies might be more interested in the event aspect. So in this case, maybe in their team they already have a DevRel for the community part, but they want another one to go to events. So in that case, the skill number one they're looking for is a good communicator. So if you don't have a community, this is fine. All right. What else? Sabi Ruding, I have 6 years of experience in the Web2 cloud. How will that help me in the Web3 field? Should I go for Web3? I already have some knowledge of Web3. Yeah, like any experience you have as in Web2 is always super beneficial. So for you, for example, every position that is backend heavy would be interesting. All right. Okay, so I think we have no more questions about DevRels. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something today. So thanks for coming, and I will see you tomorrow for another stream. All right, have a good day. Bye.